Angelo, my friend, welcome to the campfire sessions. It's good to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm definitely looking forward to getting into that idea that we all strive for, and that's just making life easy and enjoyable. So talk to me a little bit about how that looks for you. How do you incorporate those things into your life?
Well, there's a lot of ways that I do that actually. The first thing I do is take care of myself. And what that means is I try to stay in as good physical shape as I can. I'm not a young man anymore, so I don't try to hurt myself while I'm doing it, but I walk 2 to 3 miles every day, kind of watch what I eat, try to get enough sleep. Um, Try not to worry about things I have no control over. And in general, because if you don't have your health, it's kind of hard. It puts everything on the back burner because without your health, can't really do the things that you might ordinarily do or that you love to do. So taking care of yourself, I think, is one thing. Uh, the other thing is, uh, I try to say good things about myself to myself. I don't try to beat myself up uh, and be overly critical of myself. We all have flaws, we all have faults, we all have quirks, but those are kind of what make us unique. And rather than beating yourself up over those things, I try to just kind of laugh at myself and not take myself too seriously.
I think the last one is actually where most people really sincerely struggle, is that idea of self-talk, because we don't give ourselves enough credit for how important that is.
I agree. I think positive self-talk is essential because if you're always your worst critic and you're always finding fault with yourself, it's really hard for you to relate to other people on a sincere, positive level and expect them to relate to you on a positive level. If you don't love yourself, why would you expect anybody else to love you?
You know, a lot of us say that we do, that we love ourselves, but when we think about that self-talk, and it just comes to mind from my experience, a lot of that negative self-talk, I feel kind of gets built as almost a defense mechanism. Because I can remember a lot of conversations throughout my life where it was this idea of no matter what you say to me, I can say something worse. So therefore, I don't have to deal with what you're saying. Instead, I'm just beating myself up over the imaginary story that your words put into my head.
Well, if it gives you an excuse really to fail. It gives you an excuse not to be the person that you're capable of being. And you really need to focus. Everybody has great qualities. The way I wrote a book, and in my book, I say everybody has advantages and disadvantages. And the happy people focus on the advantages that they have, and the unhappy people focus on the disadvantages that they have. So I think if people would just take stock of themselves and realize that they're pretty terrific just the way they are. They have a lot of great qualities. They're good at a lot of things. They're not, they're maybe they're very kind, maybe they're funny, whatever it might be. Uh, Accentuate, focus on those good qualities that you have, rather than always focusing on the negative. And it's okay to want to improve. Everybody wants to improve. But if you're stuck in an endless loop of I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not whatever it might be, then it's very hard for you to find joy in the everyday uh, events and aspects of life.
Come to think of it though, as I started to bridge the gap and get over that self-talk and using it as a defense mechanism to change it, that journey really involved swinging a hatchet, literally one swing at a time, because it was something that I was good at. It was something that I was comfortable with building and shaping things in the outdoors. And it gave me an opportunity to step into those shoes of mastery for a little bit. And I feel like that was a very important flex of the muscles to start incorporating that into my daily life, into my work life, or my relationships with people, or just simple interactions as I walk down the street.
Well, you mentioned mastery, but mastery is a journey. It's not a destination, right? As you know.
Exactly.
And um, I think if you celebrate the small victories, if you celebrate that you're a little bit better today at something than you were yesterday, or if you have a positive experience that maybe in times past would have been less positive, you need to celebrate that. You need to appreciate it and you need to enjoy it for what it is. I think some people, when they achieve a goal, they don't even take the time to enjoy the fact that they achieved a goal. It's always, what's the next goal? What's next? What's next? What's next? There's always going to be a what's next eventually. But if you don't take time to savor when you've actually accomplished something that you're proud of, and you should, if it's something that you should be proud of it, then just be proud of it. There's nothing wrong with being proud of an accomplishment. Otherwise, what's the point of accomplishing anything?
That's where the rat race really starts to bring us down. Because I feel like, as we go from one achievement to the next, we've lost that ability to actually slow down and truly enjoy and celebrate.
Right.
And the reason that we do that is because we're looking at our our positive side. We're looking at our skills and the things that we have strength in. We're not sitting within realizing that within that journey, we're getting a chance to embrace and understand our flaws or our weaknesses. We're just we're so caught up in the idea of keeping those things in the vocabulary without giving them a definition.
Yeah, I like that. We do. And I think that focusing on flaws is a recipe for self-doubt. It's a recipe for anxiety. It's a recipe for, I don't use the word self-esteem because I don't think it means anything. I like self-worth, value, and I think it's important for people to recognize their value because everybody is valuable in some way. And I think we kind of downplay that again by focusing on the areas maybe where we don't add as much value as we could or as we'd like to. But if you focus on the areas that you do add value, if you have friends for a reason. They find some value in you. So it's important for you to find value in yourself.
Well, I think honestly, as you walk down that journey of changing your self-talk, you start to see the flow of the world around you. You start to find your position within that. And ultimately that starts to give light to the purpose. And each of us have that purpose.
Right.
You can see examples of that as you move through nature, as you're on a trail or you're on the water, because you see the way that things flow and interact with each other and realize that without one thing, there couldn't be the other.
Right.
The earth is here to support the sunshine, gives life and everything to the grass and the trees, which gives support to the animals, who give support to us. And in turn, we give support to everything else by giving a voice and being able to, you know, take care of things.
Well, yeah, everything is interrelated, but um, as you were talking, I was thinking about bees. I don't know why I was thinking about bees. Yeah, I do know why. Um, Bees fly around collecting pollen, correct?
They
And
do.
and as they move from flower to flower, they pollinate the flowers They help the flowers to grow and expand, but that's not the reason they're doing it. They're doing it for their own self-interest. They're trying to get the pollen so that they can take it back to the hive and they can create honey and they can feed the rest of the bees, the bee colony. So the fact that the flowers benefit from the bees flying around is a side benefit. Now the flowers aren't creating that pollen to help the bees. The flowers are creating the pollen to create more flowers. And the fact that that pollen helps the bees is a side benefit to the bees. But everybody, every creature, including people, operates at the basic level according to their own self-interest. And that's not a bad thing. And the fact that it might help other people along the way is great, but it's a side benefit.
I think that actually sheds a lot of light on something that a lot of us are uncomfortable with is the fact that the journey that we're on through our life, it's unique, it's exclusively ours.
Right.
And when you think really deeply into that, it puts the sense of responsibility, the sense of control right to the forefront.
Oh, it's all on you.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And I I've said for years, nobody cares about you as much as you care about you. But if you're on your journey and you touch people along the way, that helps them on their journey. As people are touching you along the way, that helps you on your journey. But it's your journey. And I think uh, people, if they have to choose between what benefits their journey and what benefits your journey, most of the time, I'd say a great majority of the time, they're going to choose what benefits their journey first. And if it benefits yours along the way, that's great. But people operate according to their own self-interest.
They do. And when you set those rules and those boundaries that define what that trail is going to look like for yourself, building that sense of self-worth through your self-talk, it makes it a lot easier to stay on the trail instead of somebody gives you some false sense of worth or some false sense of value. So you follow their trail a little bit more.
Yes. And eventually you get so far off track you can't remember where your trail was. And it's a much harder journey to get back to where you were supposed to be. Because you had a lot of detours along the way and a lot of obstacles along the way, where if you were just following your trail, your journey, without getting sidetracked, it'd be easier to keep moving along that journey because you never really reach your destination, I guess, until you die. That's the end of the journey. But uh, but yeah, just keeping going. One of the things that helps with that is to develop a sense of gratitude for what you have, and just for the fact that you're alive is a great reason to be grateful. Um, and if you make a practice of uh, listing the things that you're grateful for every day, I suggest to people when I'm coaching them, one of the first things I suggest is start a gratitude journal. Write 3 things every morning that you're grateful for. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be a small thing. Got a good night's sleep. I'm grateful for that. It's a nice sunny day. Grateful for that. We got a family. Grateful for that. It can be big things. It can be small things. But once you develop that, an extension of positive self-talk, really, is to develop that sense of gratitude. You'll start to look at the world in a more positive light. There are things to be grateful for everywhere if you just see them.
See, I want to go back to where we talked about how all the different detours on the trail lead you to this spot where you don't know how to get back.
Right.
And I feel like for a lot of us, that ends up where we live in survival mode. where
Right.
it's simply the idea of we build the basics that we need and that's all we're focused on. We don't have the ability to look beyond that at the moment because it feels fatal, right? If you start to look at those things within that little camp and survival mode, your little shelter that you made, the little things that you're picking up, the fire and the sticks and everything that you put together, with a sense of gratitude and accomplishment, I feel like that starts to expand that area that you have camp in, and you can start drawing from other resources that are going to expand and beautifies your journey.
I think that's really well said. I'm not a camper myself, but I was a Boy Scout at one time, and I know that when you go camping, uh, one of the first things you do is build a fire,
Right?
right? So if you can get really good, if you're on camping with some other people and you can get really good at building a fire, I mean, you're going to be a very valuable member of that camping group. If somebody's good at hunting, if somebody's good at uh, canoeing or whatever it is you're planning on doing while you're camping, that you should be grateful that you have that skill and that you add value to that group.
And I think again that, it draws back to that perspective of the self-talk that you're utilizing. If you're focusing on the fact that you're not the guy that can hunt, then you're really holding yourself back because maybe you've got the ability to, you know, process firewood, or maybe you're the guy that can build the shelter. If you look at your strengths and you understand that because you've got those to fall back on, you can build those weaknesses that you perceive you have. You can strengthen those muscles and you can change that
Yes,
vocabulary through experience.
yes, you can. And if you're the guy who's great at building the shelter, then you take charge of building the shelter. And then if you have a growth mentality or a learning mentality or mindset, you talk to your buddy and say, "Hey, you are so good at building fire. Would you show me how to build fires?" I mean, I've never been really good at it. You're great at it. What are you doing that I'm not doing? And that person, you're going to make him or her feel terrific because you're recognizing their value. And so it's going to be a win-win. You're going to learn how to build a better fire, and they're going to feel great because they taught somebody a skill that they didn't have that now they have. So, and you might say, maybe that person's not great at building the shelter. You might say, "Hey, come on over here. I want to show you a couple things that I learned along the way on how to really build a good shelter." And you're going to feel great, and they're going to feel great.
In the end, I think as a collective, that's what we're looking for. If you go back in time to the old Native American encampments, where at the center of the little village, they'd have a storehouse where, whatever it was that you did, once you had an abundance for your family, you'd put the rest in the storehouse. And if somebody was struggling that year, they would go in and get what they needed and they'd put it back when things got better.
Right.
And somewhere along the lines, we've kind of started overlooking that idea. It's more just simply we look for what we need and then we beat the person down around us that we think that we can fill those gaps or fill those voids within our own frame of mind. If we took time to actually become a little bit more mindful about the collective process, I think that a lot of these journeys would be a lot easier because reaching out for support wouldn't feel so untouchable or scary to do.
Well, I think we've equated asking for help or looking for support as weakness. And it's not weakness. It's just recognizing that there's an area that where you're lacking that somebody else is not lacking and would love to help you to maybe where you could uh, become better at whatever it is you're lacking. But if you ask them, then that shows that you're weak. And but it's interesting because in some situations, you look at in a classroom situation, the teacher or the professor has knowledge that you lack, and you're very open about asking that teacher or that professor to share that knowledge with you. Another area is coaching in athletics. I mean, everybody, I coach leaders. It's part of what I do for my business. But uh, in a coaching situation, you're going in with the idea that you want to get better at something, and somebody has that knowledge that they can impart to you to help you to get better. And you're very open about asking for it in that context. But in other life contexts, we're either afraid or ashamed or whatever reason, don't ask. When people, if you just asked them, would be happy to share.
What's coming to mind is that quote from Marcus Aurelius out of the Meditations, where he talks about, if you're a warrior and you're trying to climb over the wall, it's not shameful to reach up and grab the hand of somebody that's already there to pull yourself forward.
No, it's
So,
teamwork.
exactly. So, in reality, we're getting caught up in the idea of our surroundings, within the context of where we're at, is I feel where that word, the definition changes from teamwork to all of a sudden it's a sign of weakness to all of a sudden it bounces back to strength and pride because somebody else asked me for help. And if we just kept that common thread that this is a collective experience on some levels, we drift in and out of each other's journeys in order to teach each other.
Well,
And
I'm
no,
sorry, I didn't mean, I
oh,
was
go
going to
for it.
say we've kind of gone from, there's some people that in life have a scarcity mentality and some people have an abundance mentality. And the scarcity mentality is, if you got something that I can't by definition obtain that because that whatever that is scarce. In an abundance mentality, the attitude is there's plenty to go around. And uh, so it's like in the scarcity mentality, if one person wins, the other person loses. In the abundance mentality, both people can win. One person might win, get more points than the other person, but both people can still win. And I think if you go through life with an abundance mentality and believe that there's plenty of whatever it is to go around, you just have to go get it. As opposed to a scarcity mentality where if somebody has it, that means that by definition, I can't have it, whatever that is.
That's one of the most fundamental aspects of change in self-talk right there,
Yep.
is getting down and looking at that vocabulary honestly with yourself and how you're viewing it. And if you can shift that perspective to there's enough of everything around here for all of us, then it becomes a lot easier to start practicing and building some mastery that ultimately changes that whole vocabulary altogether from more of a scarcity or victim mindset to you've got the hero's journey mindset where you're taking on things and you're doing all these different things that 6 months ago you might look back at and say I never believed I could have done that, but here you are because you put the work in.
Well, the hero's journey. I love that, the hero's journey, because you can't be a hero if you don't have obstacles to overcome, right? I mean,
Exactly.
if it's smooth sailing, nobody's going to call you a hero for just doing something that's just smooth sailing along the way. All of the great stories of heroes in life, there's a point at which you're thinking, "Oh my God, are they going to make it? Is it what's going to happen? What's going to happen?" There's suspense. There's fear, there's terror, there's danger, there's whatever it is. And when the hero overcomes those obstacles or dangers or whatever it is, that's what makes them heroic. And all of us are on a hero's journey, right?
See, that's the one thing that I love to talk about because, when we share stories of heroism and everything, we tend to get carried away with the story. We make them seem larger than life. But in reality, that hero, it's within all of our hearts. We
Sure.
have the ability to be the hero of our own story, regardless of what that may look like. And just finding that willingness to step into it, I think, is the most important part because when you get to a stage where you start to contemplate that idea, you've already gone through a bulk of the adversity that every story is made of, right? In the beginning, where the
Right.
hero falls on his face,
Right.
and then he goes through the journey of growth to be able to stand up to whatever that obstacle was at the beginning. And then he overcomes it. And we all can do that.
Oh, absolutely. I used to teach college back in the 70s, and I always admired the students that came back to school as adults later in their life, in their 30s or in their 40s or in their 50s, because there was something earlier in their life that kept them from going to college. And they overcame those difficulties, whatever it might be. It could have been money, could have been circumstances, it could have been a lot of things. Some people just aren't ready for college at 18 years old, and a wise person will recognize I'm not ready for this. I better go do something else for a while, and then I'll get back to it. But the getting back to it is where their hero journey starts to really take hold because they're sacrificing something in order to go back and achieve something that's very meaningful to them. And all those students took their education very seriously. They were the ones that came into my office after class and said, "Can you help me with this?" Or I really didn't understand that. Can you give me a little? They're the ones who really wanted that journey, that hero's journey, to be a successful one at the end instead of taking it for granted like a lot of 18, 19-year-olds do.
I think that's actually a very inspirational point to kind of wind this conversation down. And before I let you go, I want to give you the opportunity to let people know what you got going on, how they can get a hold of you, all that good stuff.
Oh, sure. You can reach me. My website is angelovalenti.com. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about how to find your easy way to enjoy life, here's my book, You're Making This Way Too Hard. Find Your Easy Way to Enjoy Life. It's available on Amazon. It's available on Audible. It's available through my website, angelovalenti.com. I've got a coaching program for high achieving people, 30 to 55, who are feeling overwhelmed, disconnected with their families, stressed, overwhelmed. Would love to help them on their journey to uh, find a little mastery over their time and over their career and over their family life. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on X. I'm on TikTok. You can find me. Just my name's Angelo Valenti. If you just search my name, you'll find me.
Perfect. Angelo, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, get to know you a little bit.
Pleasure's been all mine.
Look forward to doing it again sometime soon.
Oh, I'd like that.
Thank you.